Hi, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Remember when protests used to be about something important? I do too, and I want to share that in just a moment. I grew up in the 1960s and 70s. The Vietnam War raged when I was in high school, and I was in high school in the Philippines because my father was in the Air Force and was supporting the war effort in Vietnam through a base in the Philippines. And as a result, we tended to be a stopover point for every celebrity that came to oppose the war. Now, at the time, being young and naive and not understanding what was really going on, I was very much opposed to these people who were opposing the war um, because I interpreted their opposition to be opposition of our service people, and I felt like that was terribly unfair. Uh, Jane Fonda actually came through the Philippines and talked to a bunch of airmen who were specifically ordered not to go see her, but they did anyway. None of them were ever disciplined for it, but the bottom line is that she did at least meet with some of the people who were fighting the war, not that it had any impact on her trip into North Vietnam. But, and while I still hold a grudge against her for that. I thought Jane Fonda's actions were beyond the pale at the time. I do have a better understanding of why people opposed the war, and it was important. We lost over 50,000 lives. 50,000 young American men and some women, especially nurses, were killed in Vietnam. And for that reason, the loss was more profound, I think, than people who count people as widgets would think. At any rate, the war protests were about something that everybody recognized as important. On the one side, you had the "we're fighting communism" crowd, and on the other side, you had the "let's give peace a chance" crowd. And all the war in Vietnam ever did was create a market for Vietnamese tennis shoes. Right now, Vietnam is a huge trading partner with the United States, making all kinds of clothes and shoes and things like that. It actually wound up pretty good for both sides that we quit fighting one another. And that has certainly given me a new perspective. Oh, and the other thing that it did, it made it possible to go into almost any big city in America and get a really good bowl of pho. If you haven't had Vietnamese pho before, it is the best chicken soup you will ever eat, or beef soup for that matter. They make a beef variety too. But I get the chicken soup, and my wife gets the shrimp pho. It is absolutely wonderful. And I would urge you, if you haven't had that, you ought to try it. But that gets me back to the subject of the day, which is back when protests were important. Now, some protests today are important, although I do not subscribe to their central thesis, which is that America is a racist nation. At least Black Lives Matter is protesting over something they think is important, vitally important to them. Like I said, I don't agree with most of their politics, but I understand why it's important for them to protest. And then last night on Monday Night Football, we had this fellow. He was protesting over two of his compadres who were arrested for stealing pigs under the rubric of animal rights, that the pigs were being improperly treated. And it could very well be that pigs are improperly treated in these huge hog farms. That's quite possible. I had a good friend who sued large hog farms for nuisance because they produce huge flocks of flies that feast on the large amounts of animal feces that are produced. But the bottom line is that at the very least, when we litigated those cases for nuisance, it was about something important. What these people want to do is essentially wipe out the production of bacon. And they do that through ridiculous efforts like trying to steal pigs from a pig farm. That's what the guy running around with the pink smoke was doing. He was protesting pigs. You know, Creedence Clearwater Revival wrote anti-war songs. John Lennon wrote anti-war songs. There were a lot of anti-war songs that perhaps didn't come off initially as an anti-war song, but were indeed songs about the Vietnam War. And that was a very turbulent time in our country, and there was a lot of reason to protest, especially when you look back now and see what the end result of that was. And I suspect in a few years we may find that the whole debacle in the Middle East was very much the same. That doesn't minimize the contributions of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who went over there and fought. It merely minimizes the contributions of the idiots who sent them. So, my little rant today is basically about people who do stupid things for stupid reasons. This gentleman wound up getting nailed by a Rams linebacker, and good for the linebacker. I'm glad that he took him down. Stupidity should be its own reward, and that was certainly the case last night. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, please go over here and subscribe to our channel. If not, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. And thank you for watching. We'll catch you out here next time.